Ladies and gentlemen, it is the eve of the final Vancouver Canucks hockey game of the 2025-2026 season. And with that in mind, we have a whole bunch of trade, conversation, and updates that we can dive into here when it comes to Canucks guys who are on the team and guys who could potentially find themselves off of it over the next few weeks. I'm going to leave a link in the description to Spectre's Hockey, posted on yesterday, April 15th, 2026. Because in it, Lyle Richardson goes out there and gives us the scoop from Thomas Drance on The Athletic as to which Vancouver Canucks players could stay or go. In this video, we'll also dive into what was said by David Pagnotta on Zakaris and Price as to where the Vancouver Canucks' trade futures may lie. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and I don't know, just try to absorb all the moments here because we got a lot of Canucks guys to talk about, some who could be coming back, others who could be going elsewhere. Let's start things out by reading what was written about on the NHL Rumor Mill, April 15th, 2026. On The Athletic, Thomas Drance looked at which players will stay with the Canucks and which ones could be gone. Drance believes the rebuilding Canucks are at least open to moving center Elias Pettersson and wingers Boeser and Debrusk. The trio is under long-term contracts with full no-movement clauses. Now, is that really an update? I don't know. But hearing that Debrusk, Petey, and Boeser could all be on the move does get some varying reactions depending on who you ask in the Canucks fan base. I know a lot of fans would jump the gun at the immediate opportunity to trade away Elias Pettersson. I know others would say that a guy like Brock Boeser is actually decently valuable for this team. Not because Brock is an amazing top-tier point producer or a goal scorer like he was in prior seasons, but because Brock Boeser is a veteran guy who wants to be in Vancouver. For the most part, you can say that if you want to be here, you're already better than like 75% of the Canucks players that we see nowadays. And Brock is a very dedicated Vancouverite at heart. Whether or not he ends up seeing value on this roster is outside the point. Even though he has 48 points in 74 games played this season. Even though he is technically scoring the worst point production he has had in his NHL career, it seems. Meanwhile, you have Jake Debrusk, a guy who has been defined as a very streaky goal scorer over the past few years during his time in Boston. This year, though, in Vancouver, the guy's got 23 goals, and the majority of them, by a long margin, have been on the power play. There is a very conceivable pitch that you can throw to other NHL teams that says that, hey, for the cheap old price of $5.5 million a year, you can get a guy that was a consistent power play goal scorer on the worst team in the league. How much can that guy improve your team? Elias Pettersson is the elephant in the room. He is so expensive, very overpaid, great defensive center, and honestly a pretty good mover of play, but he lacks a lot of the dynamism that he once had in his overall game. Hockey has just been ruined for this guy, it seems. I know Chris Pronger said that Elias Pettersson looks miserable, and who knows if that's a symptom of JT Miller residue or not. But it does seem like, according to Drance, Petey, Debrusk, and Boeser could all be potential trade options for this team. Pending free agents Evander Kane and Pierre-Olivier Joseph are not expected to be re-signed. Yeah, that's not really all too surprising here. Evander Kane was an experiment at best and a mistake at worst, and I don't really think anybody thinks that that was a good experiment. And P.O. Joseph is just a guy that's taken up Victor Mancini's roster spot. Unfortunately. On the province, Paul Chapman cited Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman, who recently said he expected the Canucks would have a lengthy meeting with Pettersson about where the team is going and what the options are. That would include moving into teams that he would want to go to. Meanwhile, we had ourselves David Pagnotta speaking out on Schaefer and Price about the latest with the Vancouver Canucks too. So big shout out over to Canucks News Summaries for summarizing everything that is written and talked about in the program. Let's dive into this here. So according to Pagnotta on Schaefer and Price, every indication is that Jim Rutherford will be back as Canucks president next season. Pagnotta, though, hasn't been able to definitively confirm if he has 2 years left on his contract. Meanwhile, there is a conversation on Foot and Alvin. Pagnotta doesn't believe that a decision has been made on either one of these guys. He thinks the Canucks will wait until after the exit meetings to determine their future. There's a possibility of changing the GM and giving the head coach a little bit longer of a leash, and the future of Manny Malhotra in Abbotsford also plays a factor. Teams haven't approached yet, but he would be shocked if teams didn't ask about Malhotra. Pagnotta says there is a correlation between Malhotra and Foot's future, but no decision has been made. He wouldn't be shocked if Adam Foote sticks around as head coach. The entire coaching staff has 2 years remaining on their contracts, and it is expensive to pay them to do nothing. Ah, the old Francesco Aquilini, do you think he wants to pay guys to not work for him? There are some trade updates as well. The Canucks are probably going to trade a couple more players. He mentions Debrusk and Pettersson by name, so there are those two guys popping up again. And then for the scouting staff, Pagnotta says the Canucks are going to need to decide if there is an in-house succession plan, and then decide who are going to be the long-term scouts. They have an opportunity here to revamp some of their off-ice departments. Moving over to the next slide here, there is some conversation on Ryan Johnson. He thinks there is some outside interest in him, and it has been jumbled in terms of the wording. He's not sure if teams made a formal request to interview Johnson. The Canucks want him to stick around, and Pagnotta also believes his role will be defined and enhanced for next season. There are some other notes on other players. Evander Kane, he won't be a Canuck next season. Okay, thank goodness. Teddy Blueger, there is interest in extending him from within, but Pagnotta believes Blueger will reach free agency. Teams were not willing to meet the Canucks and their asking price at the deadline. He isn't closing the door on Blueger re-signing with Vancouver, but the guy wants to understand his options. Now, I understand that would actually ruffle a few feathers here from Canucks fans in particular. Hey, the Canucks are going to let Teddy Blueger walk in free agency? Why couldn't they have traded this guy for any assets? And honestly, while I do get that idealistically you would have wanted to trade away a pending UFA instead of have him walk for nothing, it didn't seem like any team was really interested in this guy. And that's kind of crazy when you consider the fact that he's gone out there and actually had a pretty strong year. But there were enough factors working against him that it actually makes sense in my mind. He didn't have a great Olympics. He missed out on so much time. He was on a heater heading into the Olympics because, hey, there are a whole bunch of teams that are just trying to limp over the finish line and get to Milano Cortina in the first place. Teddy Blueger's coming back from injury, so he's fresh and ready to go. And then there was an element of Vancouver being bad, etc., etc. Do you think that really plays a part into it? Who really knows? But teams were not willing to meet the Canucks' asking price. That makes sense to me. David Pagnotta says here on Jake Debrusk, they will be continuing to open trade talks, and they probably would encourage it too. The guy would like to play for a contender, and that is also understood from within. And then in regards to Elias Pettersson, Pagnotta says the Canucks do not want to retain on a Pettersson trade. He anticipates there will be trade conversations this summer, and we will all have a better understanding of which teams will be interested this summer. A lot of due diligence was done at the trade deadline. Vancouver's preference is to trade him, but there are complications around it. It may be a July trade, after the free agent pool is thinned out. And then the last summary here talks about GM candidates for Vancouver. Pagnotta doesn't know if external options have been considered. He'd be surprised if Ron Francis was an option, but if they do look at outside options, he wouldn't be surprised if they talk to Tom Fitzgerald. The Preds also want to talk to him about that guy. So with all that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about these Canucks trade updates? From Brock Boeser potentially being open, to Jake Debrusk wanting to play for a contender, and Elias Pettersson putting himself in a spot where the Canucks actually want to move him. Maybe sometime in July. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. and bye.